The woman in the red coat wasn't supposed to die that night. It was my coat, my color, my mistake. When Evelyn Carter buried her husband, she thought the worst was over. But when another woman turned up dead wearing her red coat and the police said it wasn't an accident, Evelyn realized she was next on someone's list. What begins as grief turns into a deadly hunt for the truth, where every family secret hides a motive and every memory hides a lie. Let's find out what really happened in Grandma, Don't Wear Your Red Coat Today. It started like every other winter morning in Red Pines. Quiet, ordinary, predictable. The wind had that dry hiss it gets before the snow, and my old clock ticked loud enough to fill the silence. I was just pouring the first cup of coffee when my phone rang. The screen glowed in the dark kitchen. Julian, my grandson, 5 in the morning. I remember frowning, thinking maybe he dialed me by mistake. When I answered, his voice trembled. "Grandma, whatever you do today, don't wear your red coat, please." I laughed a little at first, still half asleep. "Julian, it's freezing out. That coat's the warmest thing I own." But his breath on the line wasn't laughter. It was fear. "Promise me," he said. "Please, just don't." Something in his voice, desperation, like he'd seen a ghost, froze me. "I promise," I whispered. Then the call cut off. For a long moment, I just stood there, the coffee cooling in my hand. The house felt different. Still the same wallpaper, the same hum from the old refrigerator, but everything seemed listening. I looked at that red coat hanging by the door. Bright, cherry red, my favorite. I'd bought it years ago in Baltimore after my husband passed. "If death comes for me," I joked to the sales lady, "at least it'll see me coming." Now it just hung there like a warning. I reached out to touch it. The fabric was smooth, soft, too alive for something that suddenly felt cursed. I pulled my hand back, took the old brown one instead, and stepped outside. The air hit sharp. You could smell snow coming. I remember thinking, he must have had a nightmare, that's all. But the further I walked, the heavier that promise felt on my chest. At the bus stop, the world was quiet, except for the hum of a police car up the road. Yellow tape fluttered in the wind like ribbons of danger. 2 officers were talking to a man in a dark overcoat. I stopped, and then I saw it. A body, covered except for one arm. And that arm wore my red coat. For a moment, I didn't breathe. I just stared, frozen, the world shrinking to that single flash of color in the gray morning. Detective Marcus Hill noticed me standing there. He'd gone to high school with my son decades ago. His face softened, but his voice didn't. "Mrs. Carter, you shouldn't be here." My throat barely worked. Who is it?" He hesitated, then said, "We don't know yet. ID's missing, but there's something else." He motioned to another officer who carried a clear evidence bag. Inside was a folded document. Even from where I stood, I could recognize the handwriting, mine. Marcus looked at me carefully. "This was found in the victim's coat pocket. It's a property transfer deed, signed by you, Mrs. Carter, transferring your house to your son and his wife." I shook my head. "That's impossible. I never." Then it hit me. Last week, Vanessa, my daughter-in-law, had asked me to sign what she called insurance papers. I hadn't put my glasses on. She'd said she'd handle the details. My knees went weak. The body in my coat, my forged signature, my grandson's warning. And in that moment, something inside me changed. I'd buried a husband. I'd buried a brother. But I'd never buried my trust until that morning. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you're watching from and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. I stood there watching the police load the body into the coroner's van, and all I could think was, if I'd worn that coat today, they'd be zipping me up instead. The wind blew the crime scene tape across my path like a warning line I wasn't supposed to cross. But I knew I would, because when someone tries to steal your life while you're still breathing, you don't hide, you fight. And this fight, mine, was only beginning. When people talk about intuition, they make it sound like magic, but it isn't. It's memory wearing a disguise. I kept replaying Julian's call in my head that morning as I walked back home. The way his breath caught, the way he said please. He was 22, old enough to hide fear, young enough to still believe in warnings. I tried calling him back. No answer, just his voicemail. "Hey, this is Julian. Leave a message." I didn't, because I didn't know what to say. Inside the house, the red coat still hung by the door like an accusation. I could almost hear it whisper, "If you'd warned me, you'd be gone." The kettle whistled. I turned it off, hands trembling. I was not a woman who scared easily. I'd lived through storms, literal and human, but something about that coat made my skin crawl. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the stack of mail. Bills, flyers, one letter from the county office. When I opened it, my stomach turned. Notice of property transfer. It listed my address, my name, and 2 new owners, Michael Carter and Vanessa Reed Carter. Filed 3 days ago. I gripped the paper so hard it tore. There was even a copy of my signature at the bottom, perfect, flowing, practiced. Only it wasn't mine. I remembered the day Vanessa had come over with that folder. She'd smiled so easily, her tone honey-sweet. "Just a quick favor, Mom," she'd said. "A few forms for the insurance policy. Michael's at work, but I'll handle it for him." And I'd signed, without glasses, without a question. It hit me now like ice water down my spine. She hadn't asked for help. She'd asked for ownership. The house creaked, old wood, cold wind, but it felt like the walls were whispering, "You've been betrayed, Evelyn." I grabbed my purse and went straight to the sheriff's office. Marcus Hill looked up from his desk the moment I stepped in. "Evelyn, you shouldn't be out today." I dropped the notice on his table. "Tell me that's not what I think it is." He read it. His jaw tightened. "Where did you get this?" "In my mailbox, this morning." "Who handled the paperwork?" "My daughter-in-law." He sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "Listen, I shouldn't be telling you this yet, but the victim this morning, Renee Harris, worked at the county's property office. She had access to deed records. Someone's been pushing fraudulent transfers for weeks. Maybe she found out too much." "And the red coat?" I asked. He looked uneasy. "The witness said a woman matching your height, your build, was seen near the bus stop last night wearing a red coat. If Renee was set up, someone wanted it to look like you." The room tilted. "They wanted me dead," I whispered. Marcus didn't answer, but the look in his eyes told me he thought the same thing. When I left the station, the sky was low and gray, pressing down on the town like a lid. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered. Static. Then a voice, faint, urgent. "Grandma, don't trust anyone." Then the line went dead again. Julian. He was alive. I stopped on the corner, gripping the phone like it could vanish. A stranger brushed past me, muttering an apology, and for the first time in years, I felt real fear crawl up my throat. Someone was watching, someone who knew where I lived, what I wore, and who I trusted. And if that woman in the red coat had been meant to be me, then this wasn't a mistake. This was a warning. When Marcus dropped me back home, the snow had started to fall. It wasn't the gentle kind. The flakes were heavy, wet, and fast, sticking to the windshield like they had somewhere urgent to be. I stood at the gate a long while before I went inside. The house felt unfamiliar, like I'd stepped into someone else's life. Every picture frame on the wall, Michael's graduation, our family at the lake, Julian holding a fishing pole, all of it looked staged now. How could you look at love and see lies hiding underneath? The kettle hissed again, as if mocking me for pretending everything was normal. That's when I heard the car, tires crunching over the icy driveway. Through the curtain, I saw Vanessa's white Lexus sliding to a stop by the porch. She didn't knock. She just walked in like she always had. "Evelyn," she said, voice smooth as silk, "you look pale. Did you hear about what happened this morning?" I looked at her. Perfect hair, expensive coat, that effortless confidence people like her wear like perfume. "I did," I said, "and I also heard my name's on a property deed I never signed." For a split second, her mask slipped. Just a flicker, barely there, but I saw it. Then she smiled again. "You must be mistaken. I handled that paperwork with the notary myself." She reached into her bag, pulled out a folder, and flipped it open. "See? Legal, stamped, recorded. You signed here and here." I stared at the pages. My signature, neat and clean, stared back. It looked perfect. Too perfect. "I don't remember signing these," I said slowly. Her smile widened. "Memory is a tricky thing, Evelyn, especially after 60. There it was, the knife under the sugar. "Get out of my house," I said. She blinked, pretending to be hurt. "Excuse me?" "Take your papers, take your lies, and get out." For a moment, we just stood there, the old woman and the young predator. She finally sighed, gathering the papers into her purse. "I'm trying to help you," she said. "This house is a burden. We could sell the land, get you into a nice condo in the city, but you always have to make things difficult." "Difficult," I said, my voice shaking, "is being buried in someone else's greed." Her eyes hardened. "You'll regret this." And she left. When the door shut, the silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, alive. An hour later, Michael came rushing in, still in his office coat, his tie loose. "Mom, what's going on? Vanessa called me. She said you accused her of forgery." I looked at my son, the boy I raised, the man who now stood between truth and convenience. "She forged my signature, Michael. She stole the house from me. Ask her to show you the notary's name. Ask her where she filed it." He ran his hands through his hair, shaking his head. "Mom, she wouldn't do that. She's been trying to help. You forget things sometimes." The words sliced deeper than he realized. Forget things. That was the script. I didn't yell. I just looked at him. "Your wife is smarter than both of us combined," I said softly, "and she's counting on you thinking I'm crazy." Before he could answer, my phone buzzed on the table. Unknown number. I picked it up. A voice, shaky, scared, and heartbreakingly familiar. "Grandma, I'm sorry. I didn't know it would go this far. Meet me at the old mill on Clear Creek at midnight. Come alone. You're being watched." Then a pause. "Remember our strawberry summer." Click. Line dead. My throat tightened. Strawberry summer, our code. When Julian was little, we planted too many strawberries and ended up eating them until we both got sick. Ever since, strawberry summer meant it's real, it's serious. Michael was still talking, his voice distant. "Mom, what's wrong?" I put the phone down carefully. "Nothing," I said, "just an old memory." Inside, though, my pulse was pounding. Julian was alive, and he was in trouble. I looked out at the darkening sky, snow swirling under the porch light. Somewhere out there, the people who'd already tried to bury me once were still moving their pieces. And if I wanted to keep what was mine, I'd have to move mine faster. By midnight, the snow had turned into fine needles of ice slashing through the dark. I drove my old tracker down Clear Creek Road, the headlights slicing across the trees. Every turn looked wrong, every shadow alive. The road was half ice, half memory. Julian's words kept echoing in my head. "Come alone, you're being watched." I checked the rearview mirror. A pair of headlights followed, steady, precise, not too close, not too far. Whoever they were, they'd done this before. I turned right, sharply, onto an old logging path Elijah used to take during hunting season. The car jolted, the tires slid through ruts and roots. I killed the headlights. For a minute, I drove by instinct alone. When I finally stopped, I could hear my heart beating louder than the engine. The following car rolled past on the main road, still searching. "Not tonight," I whispered. The old Clear Creek mill rose ahead, a black shape against the white field, its broken windows like watching eyes. The river below roared with thaw water, cold and endless. I parked, stepped out, and pulled my coat tight. The cold bit through it instantly. Inside the mill, it smelled of rust, wet wood, and old dust. The beam from my flashlight danced across broken stairs and graffiti scrawls. "Julian," I called softly. A rustle above, then a whisper, faint but real. "Here?" He was sitting on an overturned crate, his face ghost pale, eyes red-rimmed. He looked older, like the world had chewed him up and forgot to spit him out. "Grandma," he croaked, standing, "I messed up everything." I hugged him hard. "You're alive. That's what matters. Now talk." He told me everything. 3 months ago, he'd met Renee Harris, the woman found in the red coat. She worked at the county records office. She'd been charming, older, smart. She said she wanted to help him protect my property from greedy relatives. She'd gained his trust, asked for copies of my documents just to check. But then Julian saw her meeting Vanessa, his stepmother, at a downtown cafe. 2 hours together, whispering, smiling. When he confronted her, she laughed, said she'd been hired by Vanessa to get every piece of paper connected to me. When Vanessa refused to pay more, Renee decided to blackmail her instead. "She called me the night before she died," Julian said, voice shaking. "She said she was scared, that she was going to meet you, to give you proof. She said she'd wear your red coat so you'd recognize her. Then I heard a noise, like water, then nothing." He pulled a small flash drive from his pocket. "She gave me this earlier, said if anything happened, I'd know who to trust." I turned the tiny device over in my hand. Black plastic, scuffed edges. Something that small could weigh more than a coffin. Then the sound of a door slamming downstairs. Heavy footsteps. Not one set, several. Julian's eyes widened. We killed the flashlight. Light spilled into the stairwell, a beam from another flashlight. Then a voice, calm, practiced. "Mrs. Carter," it said, "don't be afraid." I recognized it. Lieutenant Jenkins, Marcus's deputy. He stepped into the doorway, his smile thin as paper. "Sergeant Hill sent us," he said. "Your son called. We were told you might be here. Just checking on your safety." Behind him, 2 men loomed, large, quiet, the kind of quiet that comes with guns. And then, from behind them, Vanessa appeared. She wasn't wearing her city smile now. Her hair was tied back, her eyes hollow, her voice stripped of pretense. "Hello, Evelyn." Julian stepped in front of me. "Stay away from her." Vanessa sighed. "Always the dramatic one. You could have lived comfortably, you know. We had an agreement." "What agreement?" I asked. "You hand over the documents, the flash drive, and stop your little crusade. In exchange, we let you stay in the house. You live out your days in peace." "And if I don't?" Jenkins spoke, his tone mechanical. "Then you're in an accident on a frozen road tonight. Tragic, but believable." For a moment, the only sound was the river outside. I felt Julian's hand grip mine, trembling. Then everything inside me went still. "You made one mistake," I said. Vanessa tilted her head. "Oh, what's that?" "You think I don't know how to use a phone." I lifted my cell. A red dot blinked on the screen. Recording. "I turned it on the second you walked in," I said. "Everything you've said is already backed up online and sent to Marcus." Jenkins froze. Vanessa's mask cracked, for real this time. Then, before anyone could move, the door below exploded open. "Hands up, police!" Marcus Hill stormed in, flanked by 2 tactical officers. Jenkins hesitated, then slowly set his weapon down. Vanessa shouted something about illegal entry and false accusations, but Marcus ignored her. "Naima Reed Carter," he said formally, "you're under arrest for conspiracy, forgery, and attempted murder." Julian was shaking beside me. I sat down on the crate, my legs no longer steady. Marcus came over, softer now. "You could have just called me, Evelyn." "I did," I said, voice message from the parking lot. "Told you if I went silent 30 minutes, come find me." He nodded. Smart woman. I handed him the flash drive. "Everything's here. Renee's files, Vanessa's messages, maybe worse." Marcus pocketed it carefully. "Then this isn't over," he said quietly. "It's just beginning." Outside, the sky was lightening, the faintest hint of dawn breaking over the mill. Vanessa was being led to the squad car, her hands cuffed, her face pale and furious. I watched her go, feeling nothing, no triumph, no anger, just a strange kind of emptiness. Because sometimes surviving doesn't feel like winning, it just feels like not dying today. I slept for maybe an hour that morning, if it could be called sleep. Every sound, the hum of the refrigerator, the furnace clicking off, made me think of footsteps. By noon, Marcus was back at my kitchen table, his coffee untouched. "They cracked open part of the flash drive," he said. "Emails, recordings, fake deeds, conversations between Vanessa and that Deputy Jenkins. It's all good evidence, but," he hesitated. "But what?" "There's an encrypted folder, not a password a kid could guess. This one's serious. Until we unlock it, she's got room to maneuver." I stared at him. "Maneuver how?" He exhaled, leaning back. "She's rich, she's connected, and she's got lawyers who make a living twisting the truth into origami. She's claiming she's the victim, that Renee blackmailed her, that Jenkins acted alone." I laughed, dry and hollow. "And I suppose the forged deed in her purse signed with my hand was just a coincidence?" Marcus didn't smile. "Coincidences pay well in this county." That afternoon, I got the call I'd been expecting and dreading. "Mrs. Carter," a cold woman's voice said, "this is attorney Diane Vance representing Mrs. Vanessa Reed Carter. My client wishes to inform you that she's filing a civil suit for defamation, emotional distress, and unlawful recording. Damages $30 million. I didn't say a word. She kept going, smooth as glass. "Additionally, we have filed a petition with the court to review your mental competency. Given your age and your erratic behavior, we're asking for a medical evaluation and the appointment of a temporary guardian. Mrs. Reed Carter is willing to serve in that capacity." For a heartbeat, I forgot how to breathe. "What power of attorney?" I finally managed. "The one you signed 3 months ago," the woman said sweetly. "Notarized, witnessed, everything in order." I hung up. The kitchen was suddenly too small, too cold. Michael came in just then, face pale, voice shaking. "Mom, I just got served papers. Vanessa suing you for slander." I looked at him a long moment. "She's not just suing me, Michael. She's trying to erase me. If she wins this, I'll legally stop existing. She'll be my guardian. She'll sell the house, the land, everything, and the law will help her do it." He sat down hard, staring at the floor. "She can't," he said weakly. "She already has," I replied. Julian burst into the room, laptop under his arm. "Grandma, she's bluffing. She can't win if we prove she falsified the power of attorney." I nodded slowly. "Then we need proof, real proof, before her people bury it." Julian set his laptop down, fingers flying across the keys. I started looking into Vanessa's real estate company, Summit Holdings. They specialize in assisting elderly homeowners with relocations. But look, he turned the screen to me. In the last 2 years, 11 properties changed hands through Summit. Every seller was over 70. And 4 of them died within 6 months of the sale. 2 car crashes, 1 fall, 1 heart attack. Michael paled. "That's pattern," I said, "and motive." Marcus confirmed it later that night. "We're pulling Summit's records," he said. "If what your grandson found checks out, this isn't just forgery, it's homicide for profit." I poured him coffee, hands steady for once. "She underestimated us," I said. "She always did," he answered. "But keep your guard up. Her bail hearing's tomorrow, and she'll be out by afternoon." He was right. By the next day, Vanessa was free, smiling behind her lawyer, walking past the cameras like nothing had happened. That evening, my phone rang again. "Mrs. Carter," the same cold voice said, "I'm informing you that my client will be released shortly. We are also filing for your guardianship due to mental instability. Expect an evaluation team within 72 hours. Then, more quietly, sign everything over voluntarily, and this can all end peacefully. Resist, and you'll lose everything, including your family." The line went dead. I set the phone down gently. "She's not just coming for my house," I whispered. "She's coming for my mind." Julian looked terrified. "Grandma, what do we do?" "We don't hide," I said. "We dig." We spent that night combing through the flash drive, Summit's public filings, old newspaper archives, anything that could prove a pattern. Somewhere between midnight and dawn, Julian stopped typing. "Grandma," he said, "there's one name that keeps coming up. Verena Harrington. Renee's real name before she changed it. Her grandmother's old property in Red Pines burned down years ago. She left a note in one of the transfer files. Starlight, same as the horse she had as a kid." I frowned. If she wanted to hide something, that's where she'd put it. He looked up at me. You think she left a backup? I smiled, slow and certain. I think Vanessa wouldn't be this scared unless there was still something out there to find. Outside, the wind rose, rattling the window panes. Somewhere in the dark, I could almost hear Vanessa's voice, cool and certain. You'll regret this. Maybe I would, but not tonight. Because tonight, I wasn't the one being hunted anymore. By sunset the next day, the snow had started again, thin, restless, and relentless. The kind that makes the world feel smaller, quieter, dangerous. I packed a flashlight, my phone, and a thermos of black coffee. Julian loaded his laptop, and Michael, still pale but determined, grabbed the old revolver Elijah had left in the shed decades ago. I'm not using it, he said quickly, just in case. We didn't argue. Marcus knew we were going. I'd called him before leaving, told him where and why. If I don't call back in 3 hours, I said, send everyone. Zora, he'd warned, his voice sharp, no heroics. Too late, I replied. I already lived too long to die polite. The drive to Red Pines took an hour and a half. The road wound through fields gone silver under the moonlight, past abandoned barns and crooked fences. The burned Harrington property sat alone at the end of a dirt lane, surrounded by trees that looked like dark sentinels. The house was a ruin, blackened brick, roof caved in, windows hollowed out. But the shed still stood, barely, leaning to one side, its door hanging crooked. There, Julian whispered, that's where she'd hide something. We stepped inside. It smelled of mildew and time, broken tools, cobwebs, a rusted water pump. I ran my fingers over the wood, feeling for anything out of place. Then I saw it, one word, carved into a stall board, Starlight. Her horse, Julian breathed. That's the name from her childhood photo. I crouched, pressed my palm against the board beneath it. Loose. Hold the light, I said. The plank came away with a creak that sounded too loud in the silence. Behind it, wrapped in layers of plastic, was a small metal box. Julian handed it to me. Inside, another flash drive, a folded note, and a Polaroid of a young woman, Renee, or rather Verena Harrington, smiling with her horse. Julian unfolded the note. The handwriting was frantic, angry. If you're reading this, I'm either gone or running. Naima Famasi destroyed my grandmother. I gathered everything so one day someone could sink her. Originals, recordings, bank transfers. Password, Starlight 9997. Don't believe any paper she shows you. Julian's voice trembled. This is it, Grandma. This is the real one. I closed the box and slipped it into my coat. Then we're leaving. But before we reached the door, a sound outside froze us in place. Engines, more than one. Headlights swept across the yard. 3 vehicles, one white Lexus, one black sedan, one unmarked van. Julian's face went white. She's here. I shoved the box inside my jacket, motioning him back into the shadows. Footsteps crunched outside. Then a familiar voice sliced through the air, smooth, sharp, poisonous. Mrs. Carter, Vanessa called. I know you're in there. Let's not make this ugly. She stepped into the doorway, flanked by 2 men built like concrete walls, and behind them, Preston Minton, the family lawyer. His polished shoes looked absurd in the snow. Vanessa's tone was calm, almost motherly. You're trespassing on private property, she said. That box belongs to my firm. Hand it over and we can all go home. I stepped forward, the beam of my flashlight hitting her face. "This is the Harrington property," I said. "You don't own it, and you sure as hell don't own me." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "You're playing a dangerous game, Evelyn. You think that drive will save you? Everything on it has been deleted. What you're holding is just an empty shell." "Then why are you here?" I asked. For the first time, her composure cracked. Just a flicker, but I saw fear. I raised my phone slowly. A red light blinked at the top of the screen. "I started a live broadcast the minute you pulled up," I said. "You're already on record, every word." Minton swore under his breath. One of the men took a step forward, but Vanessa raised her hand. "Don't," she hissed. Somewhere in the distance, faint but growing louder, sirens. She turned on me, her voice cold as iron. "You have no idea who you're dealing with. This goes higher than you, higher than me. You think the police will protect you? You think anyone cares?" I met her gaze, steady. "Maybe not, but I care, and I'm still standing." The sirens grew louder, flashing blue, cutting through the snow. Marcus's voice thundered from outside. "Hands up, police!" Everything erupted at once, shouts, movement, confusion. Vanessa tried to back away, but 2 officers were already on her. Minton went pale, muttering about legal misunderstandings. Julian was shaking behind me. I reached for his hand. "It's over," I said quietly. "We've done enough." Marcus came in, breath steaming, vest dusted with snow. He looked at me, half furious, half relieved. "You promised no heroics?" he said. "I lied," I replied. He took the box from my coat. "We'll log it officially. If that password works, this might blow the lid off everything." Outside, Vanessa was being led into the snow, her face no longer polished but raw, her eyes full of venom. "This isn't the end," she spat. I nodded. "It never is." As the squad cars pulled away, their lights painted the broken shed in red and blue. Julian and I stood in the doorway, exhausted. The wind whipped snow around us, erasing footprints, covering the tracks of everything that had just happened. "Grandma," he whispered, "did we win?" I looked out into the dark where the sirens were fading and said, "For tonight." 3 weeks after Red Pines, the snow finally melted. The air smelled of mud and thawed leaves, of something ending and something beginning. Vanessa's face was everywhere, on the news, in the paper, online. Real Estate Harris charged in fraud and homicide conspiracy. I never watched the full report. I didn't need to. I'd already seen the truth up close. The second flash drive, the one from the shed, unlocked everything. Julian's trembling fingers typed the password, Starlight 9997, and the screen filled with names, accounts, audio files, video evidence, every person Vanessa's company had exploited. There were recordings of Jenkins arranging accidents, wire transfers from Summit Holdings to offshore accounts, and buried deep, a video dated 2 nights before Renee's death, Vanessa and Minton arguing. "You said she'd keep quiet." She wanted more, Vanessa. Then make her disappear. That was enough. Enough to end everything. Marcus brought the evidence to the state prosecutor. Within 48 hours, new indictments were filed. Jenkins was charged with accessory to murder, Minton with obstruction, and Vanessa, well, Vanessa was finished. But it didn't feel like victory. It felt like breathing after a long time underwater, painful, gasping, but real. Michael tried to move on. He came by the house every few days, fixing loose steps, mowing the yard. Sometimes we didn't talk at all. Silence had become our way of saying we survived. Julian, on the other hand, changed. He started volunteering at a legal aid center, helping seniors with paperwork, saying it was just a side thing. I knew better. Guilt had turned into purpose. One evening, he came to the porch carrying 2 cups of cocoa. "Grandma," he said, "you ever think about leaving this place?" I smiled. "Once a day, twice on bad ones." "Then why don't you?" I looked out at the horizon, the sky going orange behind the trees. "Because running means fear won. Staying means I did." He nodded, quiet, then asked, "Do you ever hate her, Vanessa?" I took a long breath. "Hate's easy," I said. "It makes you feel powerful, but it's poison you drink hoping someone else dies. So no, I don't hate her. I pity her. She ruined lives, and someone ruined hers before that. Broken things break things, Julian." He didn't reply, but the look in his eyes told me he understood. The trial lasted 2 months. I was called to testify 3 times. Each time, Vanessa avoided my eyes until the last day. She was smaller then, like the air had gone out of her. Her lawyer whispered something, she ignored him. As I stepped down from the stand, she finally spoke, voice low enough that only I could hear. "You win, old woman." I stopped, turned. There's no winning here, Vanessa, just surviving. For the first time, her expression cracked. Something human flickered, almost sorrow. Then she looked away. She was sentenced to 25 years. Jenkins got 10. Minton flipped for leniency. The court thanked me for my courage. Reporters called me the widow who brought down the empire. I didn't feel courageous. I just felt old. The morning after sentencing, I drove to Elijah's grave. The headstone was half buried under fallen leaves. I knelt, brushed them away, and placed a single red carnation. "You were wrong," I whispered. "Secrets don't die with the dead. They wait for the living to dig them up." For a long time, I stayed there, listening to the wind in the trees. Then I smiled. When I got home, the house felt lighter somehow. I brewed tea, opened the curtains wide, and sat at the table where everything had begun. The letter, the coat, the funeral, every moment that once crushed me now felt like a strange, necessary storm. Without it, I'd still be asleep in my own life. 6 months later, spring came. The garden bloomed again, lilacs, marigolds, and the stubborn roses Elijah planted years ago. I hung his old coat by the porch door, just where it had always been, not as a shrine, but as a reminder. Sometimes I still talk to him, soft and low. "See," I tell him, "I'm still here, still standing." And in the quiet, I swear I can almost hear him answer, "I knew you would be." Moral: the dead don't always rest in peace, but the living can if they stop guarding ghosts and start forgiving themselves. Because truth doesn't destroy us, silence does. We grow up believing that truth sets us free. But for Evelyn Carter, truth was a storm that tore down everything she loved before it could rebuild her life. In a world where appearances matter more than honesty, she learned that silence isn't peace, it's slow poison. Her story reminds us that family doesn't always mean loyalty, and love doesn't always mean safety. Vanessa wasn't born a villain. She was raised in lies, shaped by the pain of being abandoned, and taught that revenge was the only form of justice. Evelyn, on the other hand, carried her own guilt, years of ignoring the cracks, pretending everything was fine. Both women were victims of silence. The true villain wasn't greed or betrayal, it was denial. That quiet decision to look away when something feels wrong. When Evelyn finally chose to face the truth, she didn't win wealth or comfort. She won something rarer, peace. Because forgiveness isn't weakness, it's strength refined by fire. Every viewer who's ever been betrayed, every soul who's ever loved the wrong person, will see themselves in her. The message is simple but unforgettable. Truth doesn't destroy us, fear of truth does. If story made your heart race or your hands shake, take a second before you scroll away. Hit like if you believe no secret stays buried forever. Comment below. Do you think Evelyn was right to forgive Vanessa, or would you have chosen revenge? We read every comment, and your stories often inspire our next episodes. So if you've ever faced a secret that changed everything, share it. You might help someone heal. And if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe and turn on the bell, because tomorrow's story dives into a different kind of betrayal, one that begins with love and ends with justice. Remember, every family hides a story. Here, we tell the ones they try to forget.